So hello everyone, today we are going to start with session number 23 in solid edge assemblies. We are going to make assembly of air gripper, also known as pneumatic grippers. So to start with, I am going to insert the mid body of the part. It is actually the bought out part, but we are using it as a part molding part only in this assembly. So this is the first part of assembly. It is having relation as grounded only. We are going to continue with the grounded part. We'll hide the reference planes here. Next part we are going to call here are sliders, which are going to slide the jaw of the air gripper. For that we are going to say insert component again. This is that part we are going to call. This is the sliding part. We'll make it orient correctly and then we are going to mate it here. So to orient the part properly, I am going to say drag component here and we'll see free move. We can also rotate the part here. So I'll keep it in this position here. You just need to select the edge around which you want to rotate it. I'll select this edge here. You can see. Next, after putting it in position, I'm going to go for the mates here. So I'll say assembly. So we'll see the top face of the slider. So we'll make coincide this top face of the slider with this surface having distance of 0.6 mm before coincide. Then we are going to go for the coincide mate of the side faces here. So I'll select this side face and this face. Right click and now we are going to go for center plane mate or center mate. For that I'm going to put on the planes here. So in assembly I'll select this plane as a reference for center plane. Then we are going to select the two sides of the part so as to make it center aligned. So now the part is positioned at its proper place here. Next we are going to mirror this part. So for mirroring this part we'll go for the mirror option. We'll select the part required, say OK and select the required plane of reference and say OK again. So here we have two parts which are been mirrored here. Now if I want to apply the motion between these two parts with the limit of the distance, we can directly go for that. I'll select this part here. In this part, for this mate, second mate, having coincide faces by sides, I'm going to select that mate and we are going to apply one distance that is 11.7 mm. So it is going 11.7 mm inside. I'll say right click and finish. Next we are going to hide the planes here. And then we'll go for this option that is variable table of motor. For that I'm going to select this option that is variable table motor. This box we have to select here. After selecting that box, I want to apply the variable speed on this variable that is V625. So here we have given the distance limit of 11.7 in the second mate of coincide. I'll select that particular mate here. Now we require to give this speed, so I'll say 0.2 centimeters per second. As it is coming in centimeters per second, that's why we have applied a small value here. Next we are going to go for the limit, so I'll say 11.7 mm and say on the negative side, say OK. We just need to go on this option that is motor, select the variable table 1, say OK, and now we'll drag it little bit downside here. You can see the air grippers. We'll say it play and you can see this motion here. These air grippers are going aside here. So in this way you can show the motion also. So after applying the motor we are going to call the next part. Now the next part I am going to call here is the jaws, which are going to slide with the sliders. Say insert components, select the gripper jaw and drag and drop it here. Next we are going to go for the mates. Select assembly. Say this face and the inner face of this slider. Next we are going to align the whole alignments here. For that I am going to say axial align. So this alignment of the first top two sides. Then the bottom holes. Say again assemble. Select the axis of the slider and axis of the jaw. Jaw grippers are being placed and they are completely constrained in motion. So again, I'm going to mirror this jaw on the other side. For that, I'll say mirror command, select the required entity or component, then go for the planes here. I'll put on the planes first and then select the required plane. Say OK and finish. So the second jaw is also been placed here, you can see here. After placing the second jaw, we are going to go for the upper assembly now. Now air gripper is controlled by airflow control valves. So we are going to place the control valves here. We have already downloaded the bought out parts for the control valves as a body. We are going to call that parts directly here. Say insert components, airflow control valve. Drag and drop it here. And now we'll place this valve here on these two holes, on these two side of the holes for controlling both the grippers. So we are going to place two valves here. For that I am going to say assembly. We need to meet the axis of this part with the axis of the above hole. We'll flip the part here. Next we are going to freely drag this part on the other side. Say drag component. Select the component and drag it in the required direction. Next we need to coincide these faces here. Say assemble. Say assembly. We are going to coincide this face of the valve with the face of this mid body. Next we need to control the rotation also here of this part. So for controlling the rotation, I'm going to put on the planes of this part. Say right click, show hide components. Put on the planes here. Say apply and OK. Now we need to say assemble and select the required plane of this part, mid plane, and this face. So they are properly parallel aligned here. Right click and escape. So after positioning, we need to hide the planes again here. Say right click, show hide components, and we are going to hide the planes here. Say planes off and OK. There are total two air valves so as to control the two jaws. So next I'm going to say clone component here. Select the required part to be cloned. Say OK. Select the hole in which the part was placed. Say OK again and select the similar hole. Say OK. Now this part is placed here also. It is also completely constrained. So after placing these airflow walls which are used to control the airflow of the pneumatics, we are going to call the gripping mount plate. Say insert parts. Select the gripper mount plate here. Drag and drop it here. Next we are going to say coincide. So I'll select this back side of this face and the top face of the mid body. After that we are going to say show and hide the planes of this part. We need to go for the mates with the reference of planes. That's why I'm showing the planes here. Also highlight the planes of the main assembly. Next we are going to say assembly again. Select the right hand side of the part plane and right hand side of the plane of main assembly. Next we are going to match the front planes here. So we can see here the holes are also been matched, the top holes of these two parts. After orienting the part properly, we are going to hide the planes again here. I'll hide these reference planes. Say right click, show hide components and put off the planes again. So now we can see the holes of this mounting plate as well as of the mid body of the part are been matched here, these cross holes. Next we are going to again call this part as a copy so as to mate it in the assembly. So I'll call this gripper part again. Same way orient it again. Say coincide this bottom face and the top face of this part. Also match the holes here. So I'll match this hole with this hole. Also on the other side we need to match it. So I'll right click here on this part. And here we can see drag component option. We'll rotate it a little bit this side here. I have taken this rotation so as to match it with the other hole. Again go for this option, that is assembly. Select this axis and the axis of the other hole, and now they are properly matched. Next part we are going to call here is flange mount extender. Drag and drop it here. We just need to coincide the bottom face of this extender with the top face of this mounting plate. I'll flip this part here. Next we need to show the planes of this part also. Say right click on this part and say show hide components, and we need to highlight these planes here. Go for the assembly planes also. Say assembly. Again we are going to match the planes so as to make them center align. Now this part is completely constrained. We'll hide the planes again. Put off the planes of this part also. And lastly we are going to call the remaining part, that is this robot mount flange. So this flange is going to be mounted with the robot which is going to move this air gripper here according to required directions. Next we are going to say coincide again, say assembly, bottom face of this part and the top face of this plate, say flip part. We are going to align these holes here, like this axis with this axis. Similar goes on the other hole size. And now this plate is also been mounted properly here. You can see this robot mount flange. So after that we are going to go for boltings now. So the next bolt we are going to call here is of M4 size. We'll place it here. So for bolt we are going to use insert relationship here. You just need to select the axis and mounting face, and the bolt is mounted. No other mate or relationship is required if you apply this mate. So next we are going to clone this component here on the other side. For that I'll say clone component. Select the bolt, say OK. Select the hole on which the bolt is mounted. Again say OK and go for the other hole now. After finishing these two bolts, we are going to go for duplicate command here. So in this assembly, we are using both clone component and duplicate component. So for duplicate component, I'm going to select the option, select the required bolts, say OK, select the part, also select the other reference part of similar kind, and then say OK again. So here these parts are duplicated on the other side also. Say cancel. Next we are going to go for the upper bolts here now. So I'll select insert components and we are going to say M4 bolts only, but they are of different length, that is 26 mm length of the shaft. So I'll call this bolt here, drag and drop it here. We'll say concentric first. For that I'm going to say axial align. Next we are going to coincide these two faces, that is this the bottom face of the bolt and this top face of the robot mount. We'll also lock the rotation here. So I'll select the bolt, and in bolt I'm going to say lock rotation. Select the related mate and say lock rotation. Next we are going to go for mirror for this bolt now after placing this bolt. So for mirror I'm going to select this mirror components. Select the part to be mirrored, say OK, and select the reference planes here. So I'm going to select this plane, say OK again and finish. This bolt has been mirrored here again. Next we are going to call M5 size bolt here. Say insert components and this M5 size bolts, drag and drop it here. Again we are going to say insert mate for this bolt. Say axis to axis, then select the faces to be coincided and the bolt is placed. Next go for clone component, select the bolt, say OK, select the reference hole, say OK, and again select the part on which you want the complete bolts. Say OK again and finish. So here you can see these boltings are also been mounted on this part here. So for these holes we are going to call the bolts of size M4 having shaft length 20 mm. Say insert components and this bolt M4 with shaft length of 20 mm. Now while placing this part, this bolt on this hole, I came to realize that I have taken this copy only, but this part is little bit different. I have that part also, so I'm going to replace that part here. So for that I'm going to say replace part, select the part to be replaced, say accept, and then go for this option that is copy of gripper mount plate, say open, and we can see this part has been replaced here. This part is having these holes a little bit larger, so I have replaced that part here. After that we are going to mount this bolt here. So this was replace option. Again we'll repeat that option, say replace, select the required part, say accept. If I want the same earlier part, say gripper mount plate only, say open, and that will be replaced. You can see the differentiation in this whole size. Correct part I will replace it again, say accept, say copy of this gripper part, and here you have the change in the part. Then after that we are going to assemble this bolt here, this axis with this axis. I'll flip this part here, say right click and escape. I'll select this bolt, say drag. I want to drag it in the upper direction. Next again go for the mate, say assembly and select this bottom face of the head and top face of the second plate. Next we need to lock the rotation also here. I'll select this part and the applied mate will be shown here. I'll say lock rotation. So now the rotation has been locked here. I'll say clone component for this bolt also. And here the bolt is placed on the second side also. You can see here these two bolts are being placed now, showing in green color. Next bolting we required here on these four holes. For that I'm going to call bolt again, say insert component, and we require M3 size. These are the bolts required to be placed there. Say assemble, select the axis to be mounted here. Next we are going to say coincide with this face. Lastly we need to lock the rotation. Lock rotation also here. Next we need to apply this bolt on the other four sides also. For that I'm going to say clone component. Select the component, say OK. Select the hole, say OK, and the reference part holes. All the four bolts are mounted here. You can see first, second, third, and this is the fourth bolt. Say OK again and finish. We'll hide the planes here. And now we have completed the assembly here. We'll go for rendering. Say tools. Before rendering, we'll say auto explode. Say top level and OK. Say explode here. So now you can see the exploded view. If I want to save this exploded view, we can save it in a configuration. As this exploded view are compulsorily required, so as to show them in drafting, we are going to go for this option, that is current configuration. And in exploded view, I'm going to say this as a new configuration. Say the name, I'll save this name as explode1. Next step, we are going to go for this option, that is display configuration. Activate the explode and say apply and update. The last step for saving this configuration is to save the display configuration. Click on this option, and now you can see we are having two configurations here. First one is default. If I say OK, it will show me unexploded view. And if I go for the other configuration, that is explode, and say OK, exploded view will be shown for me. Default, say OK again, unexploded, and if I want to show the exploded view, select the other configuration and say OK. So in this way you can save the configuration. Again, if I want to make another configuration, I'll repeat how to make the configuration again. Say auto explode again, say OK and explode. Next, for making the configuration of this explode, hit on this arrow, say new. I'll save the name as explode2 here. Say OK. Next, go for this display configurations. Select explode2, apply and close. Say save configurations again. Next, if I say default, it will go unexploded. If I change the configuration and say explode to, it will be exploded by the second configuration. So in this way you can explode the assemblies here and save the assembly as an exploded view for drafting also. Say close era. I'll hide this coordinate planes and we are going to go for this option, that is rendering. Before that, I'll open this part and apply the view appearance. I'll change the appearance of this part here a little bit, or else we'll change the option here. I'll say it copper, say close. Now we are in back to assembly. Go for this key shot option, and here we have the required part.